Hello, this is a quick video to show how to create methods using arguments in Java. I'm starting off with a basic Java file here. You can see I've declared the class is called methods with arguments, and we have at this point an empty main method. So I'm going to add a method call. Methods can be named whatever you like. I recommend using names that are meaningful towards their purpose. In this case, it's a very simple method, so I'm going to call it simple method. I'm going to pass in two arguments, a 10 and a 100. So here, this is called calling a method, and I'm passing in two arguments, 10 and 100. You can see that NetBeans underlined my method in red, which is usually a sign something's wrong. And over here in the light bulb, it says cannot find symbol. Now what that means is that NetBeans is looking for a method to be declared that matches this exact pattern. It must be spelled exactly the same, and it must pass in two integer values. But we haven't defined that anywhere in here, and we haven't included any files that include such a method. So what we need to do now is create that method. When creating a new method, I always recommend starting with comments. It not only helps people reading your code, but it really helps the person programming the code to refine their thoughts and ensure that they're creating a simple, cohesive method. So in this case, this method will accept two integers representing a start and stop value for a loop. All numbers between these values will be printed to the screen. So there, I've got a very clear idea of what I want my method to do. All methods start the same. So you can see here in our main method that we've started with a very simple pattern. We declare if it's public or private. We define if it's static or not. And what that means is whether or not we need an actual object, an instance of an object, to call this method. If it's static, you do not. Since we're trying to keep things simple, we're going to make ours static. So let's start there. So we're going to make it public. We're going to make it static so it's easy to call. And then the next thing we have to add in our method header is we have to define the return type. So what type of data is our method going to return? In our case, we're going to use void, because that means we're not returning any data when we call this method. If we wanted to return a number, we could call it an integer, or we could make it a double. If we wanted to return a string, we could say string. But in this case, we don't want to return anything, so it's a void. Now we give our method name. In this case, it's simple method. And it's showing us here on line 12 that we need to pass in two integer values. So I'm going to declare type integer and call the variable start. And then I'm going to declare another variable called stop. So you can see as soon as I've created this, although our method isn't actually doing anything at this point, NetBeans has stopped complaining about our name. The spelling of the names has to match exactly. It is case sensitive. If I change this to a lowercase m, you can see right away it can no longer find this this method. So let's make it match exactly. And I'm going to use a simple for loop. So I'm going to say for, and I'm going to create a new variable called counter, and initially assign it the value start. And we'll just print these numbers to the screen. So what this is saying is I'm declaring a new integer. I'm going to give it a name, or sorry, a new variable called counter. The initial value is start. So in this case, start has a value of 10, which we can get from when we called the system. So it's going to start at the value of 10. And then the counter, a for loop will look to see if this expression is true or not. As long as it's true, the for loop will continue. So in this case, as long as 10 is less than or equal to 100, right? So 100 is passed into the variable stop. So as long as 10 is less than or equal to 100, which is true, run this loop, then update our counter according to this condition. Counter plus plus means add 1. So in this case, we start at 10. As long as 10 is less than 100, print it to the screen, and then counter goes to 11. As long as 11 is less than or equal to 100, print it to the screen. You can see the pattern. And that's it. This is actually all we need to do a very simple method call. Let's run our program. So you can see it ran nice and quick there. If I scroll up, it starts at 10, which is exactly the number that we passed into it, and it went all the way up to 100, which is also our stop value. Now the beautiful thing is, now that we've created this method, it doesn't really care what values we start and stop with. We can put in any values. So what if I say 10 and 100 and I run this? Well, now we start at 1 and we end at 10. So you can see how this very simple method allows a lot of variability. If I wanted to print something to the screen, system.out, let's just put a new line as a spacer. I can call this method again. And maybe we'll give it the number 87 as a starting value and 99 as a stopping value. When I run this, what you see is it does 1 to 10, just like we asked it to on line 12. It skips a line, which is what we asked it on line 13. And then on line 14, we start at 87 and we work our way down to number 99. And there you have it, a very simple method call. I hope that helps.